agenda and approval of the consent calendar. Items listed under consent are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion at this time. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests.
I requested to pull F-17.
Pull F-17?
The consent and bring it.
I'm trying to get my computer to work. I'm sorry, I would like to withdraw F-17 from the agenda for tonight.
Okay.
Well, you have two suggestions.
Two motions.
Really, the board
President's discretion. Okay, so we have one who wants to pull it and move it, and one who wants to remove it from the agenda.
Completely forever?
No. Just
For tonight.
Any comments, board members? That being said, then I would like to remove this item from the agenda this evening, and we will bring it back at a future date.
Why?
Because one of the board members asked.
Well, I asked for something as well.
I understand that.
So I'm asking, what's the difference?
Because we don't want to discuss it in public session this evening. So what do you request? Thank you. Okay, next item on the superintendent staff reports.
Yes, thank you. We've had a lot going on since the last time. We had our wildflower run. The American University Women put that together, and we saw a lot of employees out there, people that had also retired, that many of them ran the event. It was a fantastic event. It raised a lot of funds. That was March 29th. March 30th, we had Martin Murphy and Live Oak gold ribbon site visits. We're excited about what might come from those visits from the county office, and attended some other regular meetings like the chamber meeting and some professional development day events. I think that maybe staff might say a couple words, surprise, about the professional development day itself. Met with the superintendents in the county. I got the chance all day Saturday. I had to miss the Morgan Hill Values Youth Conference because I was up at Henrico Park, my first visit to Henrico Park. What a gem that we have right here in our backyard. It's amazing. I've never been up there before. And if people haven't had the opportunity to go up there, it's beautiful. And we had a great time. So that was with Leadership Morgan Hill. And the people were great up there. And I got the chance to meet with schooling services staff about planning for next year, review of this year. We've got more data that just shows how well our schooling services group is doing. Last Friday, went to a great performance at Live Oak High School, Little Shop of Horrors. And if you haven't been to that, you've got 3 more chances to go. And that is Thursday at 7 o'clock, Friday at 8 o'clock, or Saturday at 2 o'clock. Well worth it. And I hope people get a chance to do that.
Just briefly, I want to update the board and the community. A few sessions ago, I talked about our recruitment plan for this season and all the different recruitment fairs. Just this past week, we were able to go to Sonoma State and CSU Chico for their teacher fairs, and I just can't thank our principals enough, and Yvonne and Alex and Heather have all participated, and I think Arlene is our champion interviewer. We just have a whole team of administrators who are very willing to go out, and it's so inspiring to see these mostly young candidates right out of the prep school programs that are eager to enter this profession, and it does fill me with hope that we have young professionals committed to quality education. So I'll keep you apprised. We've already done some interviews as a result of these, and we have long lists of candidates, and some of them even sought us out as far north as Chico. So 2 young people said, I really want to come to Morgan Hill. They're fairly local, not from Morgan Hill, but local in the area. So it's really nice being out and being a presence and recruiting the very top talent.
this past Thursday, district staff hosted an informational training for our home and school club and school connected booster organizations to provide information on new policies and procedures for our school connected organizations. We also had a local legal firm that was there helping with the process and answering questions. I thought that the training went really well. There was a lot of excitement on the part of our home and school club officers that were there, and the feedback that we got was, we wish we had even more training like this. So it was a very meaningful training. We look forward to scheduling some more trainings in the fall. They asked for additional trainings related to homeschool club policies.
Good evening. So this is a busy time of year, as you can imagine. Testing going on, planning for next year, trying to close shop for this year, and getting ready for graduations. But I did want to highlight April 3rd was our district-wide professional development day. Students didn't have to come to school, but teachers and administrators were very busy. Secondary at LIGO, where we had training for all of our secondary teachers. We had presentations from the San Jose Area Writing Project with all of the English teachers and social studies teachers. We had science training on the next generation science standards. We had math teachers getting training on using the CPN program. And it goes on and on and on. The elementary principals actually had planned their sessions in the afternoon, and the principals were the trainers. And actually provided support in a variety of topics, assessment, planning, TK, kinder, etc. So I just want to thank the Educational Services Department, Arlene Machado and the staff, and the TOSAs, the teachers on special assignment, worked very hard. You can imagine how much work goes into planning a conference. Well, it felt like a conference that day. All of our teachers were engaged in learning. Our surveys are showing that people were very pleased with the sessions, and so I just want to thank the staff for all their hard work, as well as the principals and the teachers for participating in this day.
5, board member reports. And as we have a pretty heavy agenda, and we have some, I think, exciting civics lesson content in our 22 agenda items, but I ask the board members if they possibly can keep their comments to 1 minute, if at all possible. So if anybody has any comments on the board that they would like to speak.
I do. I wanted to just comment on 2 things. First of all, I also attended the Saturday youth conference, and it was a wonderful experience. All 3 of our middle school principals actually were involved. Heather actually gave a course, and of course Glenn and Patrick won awards. And I attended 2 particular programs that both were related, and both I would hope that all of my board members could attend at some point. One was a program by Eric Gonzalez of the Gilroy Anti-Gang Task Force. It's a wonderful program, kind of an eye-opener. It gave me an insight into the life experience of many of our kids, unfortunately, in our community. And I followed it up with a meeting, second session, with Dory Prado, who has a program called Chill Out. It's every Thursday at 6 p.m. for kids anywhere from 12 to 18 years old. And there was a panel of about 14 youth there, and I learned a lot from them. Learned a whole lot. And they're actually having a fundraiser to support the El Toro Youth Center program, which is part of the Boys and Girls Club, on May 15th at Mamma Mia's. $15. I'm actually selling tickets. And then finally, I also attended the Barrett Multicultural Night, which was a wonderful event, very, very well attended by many parents. It was the first time they'd had such an event like that. And this is Karen Crane, who was a former music teacher of my 2 boys, was there and did a wonderful job. And all the staff, and principal, and the teachers were there. It was just a wonderful, wonderful Friday evening.
I was at all but one site, and independently came to many of the same conclusions, many concerns about maturation, what the program would look like, and it seemed, 50-50 in terms of just more information, and glad there was a year of planning. So I guess that's what you guys are coming to the same.
I got a lot of positive feedback about the history at San Martin.
That's right. I do want to thank you for bringing San Martin Glen. The meeting, mostly attended by parents of the UNIC program, are very, very, very excited about the possibility of K-8. They understand, though, that they want to hear from other parents. So they were very cognizant of that. We can't be the ones to make the decision and make the recommendation, but very, very proactive.
I got a lot of positive.
Yeah, I have some comments, and I have been doing a lot of thinking, reading, researching. I attended a couple of meetings. I attended the introduction at Murphy, and I went to the very tail end at Britain. Then I attended the evening seminar when a couple comments and observations and questions, I guess. Well, I have questions, but if I go to these questions, we'll be here until midnight. But I have real concerns about the middle school model period. And I am very interested in having more K-8 schools. I'm very interested in really taking a step back from this approach of 6, 7, 8. It's clearly people who are involved clearly don't want it. I actually talked to 2 committee members, and they said they were kind of surprised about it. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, on the first meeting of the committee, it was just an introduction, and at the second meeting, it seemed that the committee had already reached the conclusion of going to 6, 7, 8, and they said they weren't consulted. These were committee members. That was the first area of concern, and that really goes back to the kind of surprise that I had as a board member when this came up as almost a pre-baked deal. I certainly appreciate the fact that we have some space problems the way our schools are currently configured, but I came to this board to try to build an academic powerhouse in this district. I think we're making some good progress in some areas, but all the research that I've seen that's been recent, the recent research, and I'm talking about studies from Rockoff and Lockwood in 2010, Schwartz and West in 2013, one that just came out from Vanderbilt. And basically, this is the recent research in the last few years. And they assume all the research that's been done prior. It's not as if they have a game plan. These are academics who are people who study, for example, the entire state of Florida, New York, Kentucky. There's also another one in Vancouver, British Columbia, large studies. I mean, these are recent studies. And basically what they're saying is pretty consistent is that in terms of student achievement, notwithstanding the socioeconomic, psychological issues that many parents are concerned about, here more than one, but the student achievement issues actually begin in the when kids go into middle school from 6th grade, and actually the trend, contrary to what Trustee Wolf pointed out last time in terms of the obvious preponderance of schools in this district that are 6, 7, 8. Actually, the trend in some of the many districts around the U.S. is the last 10 years to go back to K-8. And that is because the academic achievement declines. I mean, there's tons of data on that, study after study, in the recent studies talking about that. And so I really, I'm interested in looking at a whole different model, really K-8 for the most part. Jackson is popular. I think that's one reason. I talked to not only DMA, but also non-DMA students at San Martin Glen, and they're very interested in K-8 for a lot of reasons. I also talked, as I mentioned before, Saturday, to middle school students who feel lonely. I think we have fantastic principals. I think they're doing everything they can. But I think the middle school model is something that we need to question. And I think we need to be flexible and think outside the box. If we don't do that, I'm afraid we're going to see persistent difficulty from a student achievement standpoint, no matter what we do in terms of building support. And I'm wondering, my question is, are you willing to look at a different pathway? Because I'm afraid that this train that I talked about last time, I'm afraid this train is still moving forward. And I'm sorry, the parents in the community who've spoken up so far, I don't think they're a noisy minority. I think they're representative of other parents. That's what they tell me. And I think I'm unhappy the way this has come out. I applaud the work of volunteers and parents who've been working on this, but I do think it is good to take some time. I would love to have the board actually have a study session, not just a couple hours, but a longer one, where parents can come in, educators can come in. I've talked to some teachers who are questioning this. And I think it's very, very important that we do what's best for kids. I doubt that it's 6, 7, 8. I really doubt it. I think we'd have to have tons of support. I'm very, very concerned about the impact on 6th graders going to 7, 8 in terms of what I heard Saturday, in terms of gang penetration in Morgan Hill, in terms of wannabe gang members in the middle schools, in terms of the Latino students who were basically begging. They're begging me as a board member, please bring this to the board. Please tell us we need help. We need help. And they said we want to get more adults in the schools. We want to get more volunteers in the schools. And I think this could be not just a train moving fast, it could become a train crash. And I don't want to be a part of that. I want us to really take a step back and be conscious of the building needs we have, but think of some alternatives, because there are many configurations we could look at in terms of what we could do with Britain. It's important that we make a decision about Britain quickly, because the cost, as we learned a couple of meetings ago, of the rebuilding, if we go with what we're planning right now, it's going to be hard to go backwards. I think there's some creative ways we haven't looked at yet. There are people in the community, there are parents who are just bubbling up with all kinds of ideas, and I think we must not portray them as noisy, annoying problems, but these are some of the most articulate and concerned parents we have in the community. These are the kind of parents who are at risk. These kind of parents are at risk of going to private schools or charter schools or even the district.
The gang members you're talking about?
I'm talking about the parents who are talking about their concern about their kids going into 6, 7, 8. I want these parents to be involved in the schools, and I don't want them to feel that we're not listening to them. So I hope that we can find ways to continue to engage them. I thought it was a great idea to have these outreach meetings, but I hope it's just the start. And so I'm wondering, is this the final decision, or are we really open to a K-8 or other kinds of configurations? Because the research is telling me that it's just not good from either a student achievement or a socioeconomic standpoint.
So you must be really excited about the possible kids similar to one, right?
Absolutely.
So that would mean that we have 2 of it.
That would make me happy. Not just me, but the
So, trustees, do we have any other questions? I'm sorry, Don.
I just wanted to make a comment to what you stated about the 2 committee members that were concerned about the speed at which a proposal was created. And I don't know who those 2 people are. I will say I don't believe that to be the case, because you said, that I guess it went to an informational meeting on the first meeting, and then by the second there was a proposal. And I know I can state emphatically that that's totally untrue, because I only joined the committee at the second meeting. And so we went through about 3 meetings since my first one, which was meeting 2, where there was a lot of vigorous debate and discussion about various models, pros, cons, minutia, higher level thoughts. And it wasn't until maybe the 5th meeting where we were starting to kind of get muddled, and we were trying to figure out what is our next step, what are we trying to decide, to where we then came and decided, well, let's just take a vote. Let's just see amongst the people in the room kind of where we're leaning. And within that particular group, we have recorded notes that have numbers but there were about 20 people in that room. And I will say, because I have been at every single one of those meetings since I was invited to join, that there are many people who don't attend it as religiously. So it very well could be that, these members came to the very first one, didn't show up again until 5 meetings down the road. But I will categorically deny that we rushed into anything, because again, I joined a meeting too, and I know that we didn't even talk about a vote until 3 or 4 meetings after that. So there was more thought and consideration, I think, put into this process than what you've been alluding to.
I just want to go on record that I have been a facilitator of these meetings, and I am a trained facilitator. And when I facilitate. I do not lead the group to go one way or the other. I listen, we record, we debate, and we did have many interesting conversations. And I'd like to go on record that did not happen. So I just want to go on record.
That's fine.
That did not happen, and I don't want the public to believe that this was a decision that was made.
And it is my view from the vote that was taken was whether or not we voted that as far as LCAP is concerned and the 6A configuration to go ahead or not go ahead. If 20 people in the room decided they did not want to address that, that committee is dissolved. The committee voted, it voted towards a 6A configuration, so that with the interpretation that we would from there continue to meet on a regular basis to develop some sort of plan, gather information, talk to the public, because otherwise what do you do from there? You have to come up with some agreement within 20 people to decide where to move forward, where to gather your information, what information are you looking at to gather, and at what points do you decide to include, because I know you have come for special ed. I mean, that isn't necessarily the first thing you address, but you have to start somewhere. And I think for me, when I voted, wasn't that I never felt like this was the plan that we were presenting to you and it was a done deal. That was a starting point to start gathering information, see what areas in which we were lacking, and move forward from there. So if that ever got portrayed in this meeting or the public that it was a done deal, was a misconception of what I felt the committee was voting on at that time.
Thank you so much for the clarification and for all that you've done involved in recruitment of students. For clarification, when you voted, how was it that at the next board meeting there was a recommendation to start a pilot program with 60 students? That's not what you guys voted.
All I can say is that we sat there, most of us, till midnight, and Jenna Abels came up and spoke on our behalf at that point. Me, because I'm not sure of parliamentary procedure, I never turned in a card, not knowing what was going to be said, to clarify some of that.
Well, and in terms of how all that came about, that was one idea that was on the table at the time, because there were some members of the committee that were very interested in starting the transition. There were others, and I will say that I was one of them, that was not interested in transition and was interested in slowing the process down. And so we kind of felt like, why start a transition when there's not a more solid full implementation plan for all the students? That was kind of where I was coming from. And so I will say that a possible transition was always kind of on the back burner that was discussed at different points, at different meetings. And then that was something that we were both, we took a vote to kind of see where we were at as a group, whether we had any sort of consensus on number one, making a recommendation or a proposal, and then two, what type of implementation plan, and whether that would be a transition or delaying that much further until we could figure out the full scope of the district and involving all students, not just the 60 that were originally proposed. And so then by the time we took that vote, it was more mixed on the type of transition
was unanimous that we were not gonna use a pilot program. That was unanimous, that was not ever something that any of the committee members agreed to a pilot program. We were all talking about the transitional phase.
So the second thing I have to make a comment about is, I too want to go on the record for Norma, Dr. Martinez Palmer. At the San Martin meeting, just as we got started, you said, I don't have all the answers. I'm not an expert. I want to beg the difference. I look at you and I see you as the most qualified education history education. You are an expert. So please don't underestimate yourself. You know, we look at you as educational leader, position that you have. So to make those kind of comments, do more.
Britain, and especially at Nordstrom and Paradise Valley, in the 90 percentile, we're very verbal against the 6 to 8, and some of them even says the data clearly shows one transition, and a K-8 is the best solution. So why are we looking into a 6 to 8 configuration? I also have many emails from parents. I like to ask you, what do you want me to copy and paste them into one document and send them to you, or because some of them are very they go into detail about how they feel, and they don't feel good about what has transpired. I understand where some of the committee members, are coming from, but the community has felt blindsided, and that's a direct comment. And they said it's quite totalitarian and not acceptable for elected and paid stewards of Morgan Hill District. I mean, but there's a lot of that in there. But I was at the board meeting when you asked for approval. So you did have plans to move forward. So I know you're shaking your head, but that's what was presented to the board.
Actually, it was not an action item.
Information, I
It
don't
was,
want to.
it was information.
But you asked us
For direction.
for
We
direction.
wanted direction
That's right.
to,
So, okay, wait a minute, I'm not finished yet. So,
I see a lot of finger pointing here, and I'm sorry, but I don't tolerate that. And the other thing I'm hearing is, are we moving to an entire K-8 configuration? I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
I'm not finished.
Go ahead and finish.
I would really, you can have your turn, but I'm not finished. All I'm saying is, this is what I heard out there. So, and I have emails, and I just would like to know, if I send you cut and paste, how are you going to work with your committee to look at these and try and figure out ways on how we can move forward? I would like, it sounds like you got a great committee, but I think the data that you presented is showing something other than a 6 to 8 configuration as the best solution. I would rather you put your time and energy and expertise into those areas, such as what Trustee Gerard, suggested, rather than keep on this 6 to 8, which is clearly not acceptable to many of the parents. You made the Paradise Valley meeting on a Monday, directly after recess, Easter recess. Mondays are the worst days for parents, if you know anything at all about parents. And so
disrespectful. Am I reprimanded?
no, I'm just saying.
I think we should.
I'm just saying, if you want the greatest attendance at a meeting, it has to be, well in advance. And I know you tried your hardest, but I'm just saying, we have to slow down this train, and we have to really identify a a direction that increases student achievement instead of possibly decreases student achievement in that 6 to 8 grade level configuration. So that's all I'm saying.
You know,
Yeah, I'll take the
I am.
thank you, Gino.
Could I have, if any of the board members have specific research that 6 to 8 decreases student achievement, I would love to have it.
There's research that shows either way. That's
Yeah,
about
that's what I'm
research.
saying.
And
I get what
but
you
Gino,
mean.
wait, what Gino
Guys,
said about, hold on one second,
let-
Bob, you cut me off every time I speak.
No.
One thing that Gino said is that the staff provided them information showing one way. I have to assume, I haven't spoken to the committee, but I have to assume that they're intelligent enough to do their own research as well, right?
Absolutely, and we have followed up on footnotes on various research, which Dr. Martinez Palmer also presented, the Philadelphia study that school districts within Philadelphia that switched completely K-8 because it was the best model fit. So if you want to talk about statistically significant data, we have to consider it all. I don't know that we're at the end of that process yet by any stretch of the imagination.
Donna?
As I said, I attended all meetings. I was there before the meeting started. I stayed till every meeting ended. I could not go to 2 meetings. And there was a wide range of conversation. But I think the summary we heard tonight was the focus. We have to continue to solicit the surveys. But I think the point now is we have a year of planning and conversation. There is no drop-dead decision. We have an ongoing standing committee of community members. And if we have data, such as Mr. Gerard brought, I'd like it to be shared data because it's very difficult to have a thoughtful and measured conversation with nothing that we held in common. And I greatly respect that the Hanover research was tailored to our district. That's what we had to consider. So I would like to end this information discussion and move on to the next agenda item.
I have a comment I'd like to make.
I'd like to move on. Please,
David,
I'd
you've
like
had
to
the
call
floor
for
quite a
moving on.
bit, and you've commented extensively. So I'd like to honor Donna's request and move on to the next item.
And if you have any research, please forward it to me. If you have any parent emails, forward it to me. And I will work with staff on our activity and future recommendations.
The train has not left the station. Let's move on to the next item.
That doesn't make it confidential.
All I'm asking was that we try to report.
It sounds like your request for this item is not the same request that was agendized, that was titled engage, or community outreach, I think it's titled. So would you like to meet with the board president and myself to describe what the differences are?
No. No,
So-
I asked to bring it. When a board member requests something to be agendized, the board president has the same vote as any other board member here. He has no more, no less. He's obligated to agendize the item that I request.
So that's
So
not
Ms.
true.
Hughes, that's not true.
That's not true.
The
It
board
falls
president,
within the jurisdiction of our district, it should have been agendized.
the
That's the
board
key
president,
word.
the superintendent, and the third party in the group set the agenda. Your
Correct.
request may come in, repeatedly. It does not mean it has to make the agenda.
Yes. Yes, it does.
I disagree.
Okay. You, as the board president, do not have discretion to say yea or nay from a board member's request to agendize an item.
I humbly disagree.
Well, I will make sure.
We'll review policy.
We'll review it.
We'll review
Review it.
policy to that purpose, and then we'll set up a meeting unless you don't want to meet.
I do not want a meeting with, I'll have a meeting with you if you'd like, because you got this request too. Per your contract, you violated BLO Section 2 of your contract by not complying with a board member's request.
What is that? Those are line items on his contract.
Section 2, BL and O. So you're supposed to work with the board. You're supposed to ensure things happen. So you're just, look, we have to be transparent to the community. And what you're doing is not allowing a board member to function as a board member by 3 times now denying that same request with a funny look that you don't know what it is. I
At the
sent it.
last meeting, I have a question. Did you email that to them
Yes.
recently?
Yes.
This big, because I was talking.
You were up?
Was that the one that you copied on?
I'm not sure who I
I don't know, I got something from him. This was
You have a
held up
copy of
and
it?
said, I'm sorry?
Do you have a copy of it?
I don't know, I think I might be talking about before, I don't know.
I don't know what the idea is.
So
We
getting
gotta
back,
back and look.
This was
back
held
to
up,
that
gentlemen,
particular
hold on, let me
request.
speak, Steve. This was held up, they said, you want something on the agenda, here's the
Yeah,
policy,
9320.
do it.
That's correct.
Right, and by the way, in my 4 years in coming before the board, I've never seen any board president do that to another board member.
You know, I would dispute you being at the board for 4 years, that that's irrelevant right now.
Okay, so you said you set up a meeting with me, are you willing to meet with me about that, and then we can go to policy about doing things on the agenda?
I think that'd be good.
Yes.
I will do some research and I will reach out to you for a minute.
Okay, moving on to pupil
So I
discipline.
actually have some answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you. I am interested really in having a study session on configuration because it's a very difficult, complex subject. I'd like to have maybe several hour meetings talk about this because it's very difficult when it's late at night. I appreciate especially the parents being here tonight and staying with us until 9:40 p.m. But if we could have something earlier in the day where parents could come and where we could have a discussion because I'm afraid we might get into a track where we're going around and around and not talking about the same thing and not talking about the same research. So I really would love, with the help of our team here, to facilitate this, of course, to have such a session. We had a very nice session, by the way, last night. I thought it was very, very productive. I really enjoyed working with Trustee Rubish in particular, going around the room and talking about different data. And I think this kind of activity is something that will bring us together because we actually, believe it or not, we actually have common interests. We actually have, each of us has this strong interest in student achievement, in student happiness and learning. And I think these kinds of activities, such as study sessions, can help propel us toward more of a common T instead of a common D. So it is my request that we consider that sometime in the next month. And if it's not convenient, then some other time. But I do think that having study sessions for this young board is a very useful way for us to start getting to speak to each other and understand each other. Very good. Amen.
I'd like to suggest that we have a special meeting to discuss, I guess,
Continuation.
You can say anything you want.
to discuss what we're gonna go back and discuss.
I didn't catch the beginning of that.
To have a special meeting,
Okay.
and maybe Friday, maybe Monday, Tuesday.
For our closed
For
session.
our closed session, because we're gonna, it's gonna
Superintendent
take probably
evaluation.
2 hours, and I don't wanna stay here until.
No, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna do it.
Yeah, that's not.
Good.
Can we schedule a special
We
meeting?
won't need to do it. I'll explain it to you when we get to it. It'll just be a calendar.
So we are returning to closed session.
Well, it's not gonna be an action.
So I think that we're returning to closed session to
Calendar.
discuss
Future closed session.
future closed session items related to what we were gonna discuss today.
Right.
I got that?
Sounds good. Okay.
Last thing, I have a future business item. We pulled the consent item today, F17.
Yes.
And it has to do with the superintendent's contract.
Excuse me. Where are you going with this? Be
No.
very, very careful. Be very, very careful where you're going. What's your question?
My question, no, it's not a question, it's
What's your
future,
issue?
future board issues. Agenda, I'd like to get this back on the calendar
It'll be addressed.
in public.
It'll be addressed.
It's not the discretion.
It
Steve,
will
let me
be
know.
addressed. Wow, great, it will be addressed. Trust me, it will be addressed. You want to address the superintendent's contract, it's not a public discussion. You have a specific,
So,
his contract is public, it's not the contract that you want to discuss, it's the issue that you want to discuss, and it will be addressed. I'm telling you, it will be addressed. It will be addressed, trust me.
I want it back on the calendar and I'll send another request.
Send in your request. Okay,